So let us peer into your deepest, darkest fears as I take a retrospective look at the entire Nightmare on Elm Street film franchise. So as you can see, I broke out the moody boiler room type of lighting and threw together a little slapdash green and red outfit to pay tribute to Freddy Krueger, one of the great slasher icons of all time, one of the great horror icons of all time. And Friday the 13th is my favorite slasher franchise, but Nightmare on Elm Street does earn a certain amount of respect from me because it did start out as extremely imaginative and it continued to do original, fresh things as a lot of the sequels went on, but we'll get to them in due time. What ones succeeded, some of them failed, some of them really fucking tanked hard. There's a lot of ups and downs in this franchise, as most franchises have. But we'll get into everything very shortly because the whole thing starts out in 1984 with Wes Craven's original A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven had done a couple other things before this. The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, a couple other things I'm sure. But this was the big mainstream type of hit that just propelled him, made him stand out, saying this is an original, imaginative type of director who can bring something completely fresh and completely new to the whole genre and everything, because you had a couple years already. A couple of the slasher films that had come out from the boom from Friday the 13th that just, they're churning them out like it's nothing, they're making money, making tons of bank, and might have been starting to wear a little thin, so 1984 was the exact perfect time for Nightmare on Elm Street to hit something with nice fresh vibe, nice fresh ideas, whole different type of thing, and a completely different type of villain that's not a silent guy in a mask with a knife or anything. It's a completely type of different personality and dynamic. You have this guy who's going to be very intimidating because he's a sick, depraved son of a bitch. And this is one of those horror films that when I first saw it many, many years ago, when the house was nice and dark, it was late at night, I'm watching it alone, and this film creeped me the living hell out. And it is still immensely effective to this day. One, mainly because of that great soundtrack that they have. Not just the score, but the overall sound design, the sound effects they use, the ambient noises that they have throughout this film. When you hear in that great remastered 5.1 mix, it is so immersive, so atmospheric. You are so enveloped into the atmosphere of this film. Wes Craven's direction is fantastic. It's just so spot on. He knows exactly how to tweak the suspense and the nerves of an audience in just the right ways, and gives you that plenty amount of blood and gore and everything that satisfies that, but he goes for the suspense primarily, and then the gore is the payoff beyond that. And I just love that kind of quality in a horror director, that they focus on atmosphere and suspense first, and then they inject a little something extra if they want to. And Wes Craven does such a fantastic job. You got obviously Robert Englund. This is probably the first film that's probably has the best representation of Krueger, because he is that dark, sick, very serious type of figure, that he is not played up for jokes at all in this thing. He's a very sick, depraved, sadistic, sinister type of character that just, he will crawl into your nightmares and haunt you like hell. It is very, very convincing, his performance and presentation of Krueger, with having him so absorbed into the shadows of the boiler room and everything else, that you only see what Wes Craven wants you to see of Krueger at any one point in time. They don't fully expose him in light that a lot of these sequels ended up doing. And you also got Heather Langenkamp, which I think is one of the best horror heroines of all time. She is such a strong female lead that you never get that moment in the film where she's like frail, cowering little thing in the corner or whatnot. She is strong, powerful. She's a proactive type of character who is not going to be pushed around. She's not going to be kind of shoved around. She's not going to be in the background or anything. She is right in the forefront of the whole thing, and it is such a fantastic performance. She is strong, solid all the way through. And we got Johnny Depp here in his first movie role, and he does a really damn good job and just being a fun, upbeat type of character. And it's nice to go back and see that fresh, young Johnny Depp, as opposed to a lot more of the eccentric type of stuff he does now. And you got John Saxon, who in absolutely every single thing I see him in is a rock-solid talent. That this guy's charismatic, he's got a great granite type of screen presence, that this guy has gravity to him, that he brings weight to everything that he does. And it's great that he could be that warm, fatherly type of figure to Nancy, but also that rock-solid type of police lieutenant that you just believe in him so much. He's not that stereotypical dumb-ass cop that you throw into so many kind of cheap horror movies and everything. He is intelligent, smart, perceptive, sharp as a razor type of police lieutenant. Fantastic performance from him. And overall, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first film, is so damn good. It still holds up perfectly today. All the effects work is still amazing, still imaginative, that they use simple things and a lot of stuff, but also a lot of much more elaborate effects that work to just make this surreal type of environment and imagination live and breathe and thrive on screen. And with Wes Craven's imaginative, original type of vision, it just comes together as the perfect package of talent all the way through. There's not a weak link anywhere in the cast, in the crew, anything. It's all punctuated just perfectly, and they have the right ideas injected into this thing. But because New Line Cinema was not in the best of financial standings at the time, when Nightmare on Elm Street really took off at the box office, became this big solid hit for them, they rushed to just, we gotta milk this thing right the fuck away. So they went ahead and made a Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which their subtitle doesn't quite make sense since there's no recurring characters from the first film aside from Freddy, so who exactly is he getting revenge on that did him wrong before? Because none of the people really involved in this film really have anything to do with his origin, so it's whatever, it's a stupid subtitle. Freddy's Revenge is not a bad film. A lot of people kind of rag on it, call it shit or whatnot. It is not a bad film. At best, for me, it's just mediocre. I think it would work better if it was just his own film. It was not part of a franchise. It was just his own standalone type of psychological, supernatural horror film. I think it would have a little bit stronger reputation to probably be able to accept it a little bit more. A couple of the problems where, got the things where Freddy kind of enters into the real world and he's running around just like a crazed maniac or whatnot. Doesn't really kind of appeal to much more fantastical type of imagination that was on display in the first film. That really seems that some of the creative minds involved with this film really didn't have a lot of reverence or respect or whatnot for what Wes Craven did with the first film. That it didn't really click. I mean, even director Jack Sholder really said that he wasn't that much of a fan of the film. So it just kind of like, Jack Sholder could be a decent director and everything, but you don't want to hire someone to make a sequel to a very successful film that doesn't have a lot of respect for it. It really not can come out with a film that's really going to have a lot of not going to feel very cohesive with the first film. And I think Marc Penn is a solid performance in this film. He does a really good job. My only problem is kind of the same problem I have with Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, is that sort of the main character of the film, the intended protagonist, is such an introverted, non-active part of the story that character of Jesse Walsh is victimized throughout the whole film, and he never takes a proactive step like Nancy did in the first film to actually combat Freddy. He's always being attacked by Freddy and running away. He's always being victimized by Freddy. He's never taking a stand and fighting back. And it comes down to the fact that his girlfriend is actually the one who actually has to save the day for him. So I could get into a lot more elaborate details. There'll be links below to all the written reviews, get a lot more depth about what I have to say about this stuff. But in short, Freddy's Revenge is a mediocre film in my view. It's nowhere near being the worst of this franchise, not by a long shot. Freddy's Revenge has a lot of good stuff in it. Marc Penn does a solid performance in the film. He really sells every little quality of the character. He is solid. He is exceptional in that regard. It's just the fact that the script and the ideas in the screenplay don't really kind of build on what was there in the first film a lot, or they don't pay a lot of respect to the rules of the world that Wes Craven created in the first film. And it's very much a sad state because the psychological elements of the film with the dynamics between Jesse and Freddy are exceptionally well executed. There's a lot of moody stuff, a lot of atmospheric stuff. There's some very disturbing type of things going on. The kills aren't imaginative. There's a lack of imagination in this film, and that really is its downfall, in my opinion. That there are a lot of people out there that do very much enjoy this film a hell of a lot. Some people even think they feel for them it's their favorite of the franchise, but for me, I just put it right in the middle. It's very, very much mediocre. It could have been a hell of a lot better than it was, but it's not nearly as bad as it possibly could have been in even worse hands. But New Line learned its lesson. It saw that the reaction wasn't quite, critical reaction from the fans wasn't quite very much appreciative of what they were doing, so They try to bring Wes Craven back in a little bit, work on the script for Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, which very much is the fan favorite film of the whole franchise, probably my favorite sequel of it, because there is so much that is done right in this film to make it scary but also entertaining. But getting back to a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff, yeah, they brought in Wes Craven to pitch a couple ideas to him, kind of write out a couple things, which they brought in other screenwriters that changed things up a little bit, kind of worked on the script a little bit more, brought in director Chuck Russell, who I think did a really solid job under a lot of pressure in this film that he didn't have the best experience doing the film because there was, like I said, a lot of pressure on him doing things, and it did turn out a very damn good movie because this film really got in the right stride for the film, for the franchise and as a whole. It got into the right stride. It brought back Nancy, brought back John Saxon, built on those ideas, and everything just made it much more of a linear, cohesive storyline to the first film. And really is a film that really does start a little bit pushing Freddy towards the comic, but there's still enough horror involved with this thing. There's still enough intimidation factor from Freddy to make him that much of a threat. Even though he doesn't have quite as much of abundant screen time as some of the other films have him with, but sometimes that kind of works to the benefit of the character, that if the characters that you have on screen, which this film has amazing, fantastic, great, solid characters in it that can entertain you, drive the story forward, and do a lot of great things to really invest you in every single character, and everything's very well cast. It have enough interesting characters in it that drive the story forward, drive all the qualities of it, the emotion, the fear, everything. If you can drive that forward, you don't need Freddy there so damn often. You can have it much more like the first film, where Freddy was there when he was needed, instead of just there to blaster him all over the place and make him a marketing tool like a lot of the other films ended up being. And a lot of the imagination is back in full force. There's so much imagination in this film that I love the quality that, because you got all these different types of characters involved with this thing, and they all have their distinct personalities and their own distinct fears, that Freddy can tap into each one of their fears and create these all their own unique, interesting scenarios in the dream world, in the nightmares and everything, and that just fuels the creative imagination that keeps the film inventive, lively, interesting. And of course, another standout talent in Dream Wars is definitely Patricia Arquette, portraying Kristen Parker. She does a really solid job, kind of really had that great passing of the torch from Nancy to Kristen, and it is a great piece of work that you have these characters working in tandem against Freddy, who's now more powerful than ever because he gets more powerful the more souls he takes. And there's just great ideas flowing through this film completely that they do expand on the ideas from the first film, which Freddy's Revenge couldn't do. This film does what a sequel is supposed to do: take the ideas and situations and characters of the first film and expand on them and do a great, bigger story in a certain way, that they do a lot of great things that just make this a great sequel, in my opinion. But Dream Warriors obviously was very successful because it was definitely justifiably so, because it was a solid, hell of a damn good movie that delivered on the scares, it delivered on the entertainment value, did everything just right. So they went ahead and pushed things to the biggest money maker of the franchise up until Freddy vs. Jason, which would be Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Now, for many years, I had a negative opinion about The Dream Master. For whatever reason, I didn't think it was a good film. And it doesn't do what a horror film is supposed to do. It doesn't deliver a lot of scares. It doesn't deliver suspense or anything. It doesn't really work as a horror film. But damn, is The Dream Master an entertaining, extremely well-polished type of film that it works much more as a very entertaining sort of action, dark fantasy, 80s type of movie. It's a perfectly 80s type of movie in a certain way, because this is directed by Renny Harlin, and he proves that he is a great visual director in this film, that this is, possibly in my opinion, the most cinematic looking film of the whole franchise. He takes what was done in Dream Warriors, that kind of look, the colorful look and everything, and he amps it up with much more atmosphere, much more smoky visuals, high contrast type of look and everything, and they're just he just does everything right visually in this film. It just looks like a spectacular looking film, and he makes it so entertaining. The main thing is that this thing does have a really strong story in this film. I really like the story in this film. There's great character progression, there's great sort of another passing of the torch, there's a lot of good stuff in this thing that it is very well written, in my opinion, as a very solid follow-up to Dream Wars completely. I think in that regard it works superbly in that type of way. That it's unfortunate Patricia Arquette had such a bad experience on Dream Wars because they had to recast the role of Kristen Parker with Tuesday Night, and that change of actress really kind of impacts the film in a certain way. You don't have as much of an emotional investment in the character as if it were still Patricia Arquette. But getting past that, I think beyond that type of stuff, this thing is exceptionally entertaining. That reason why it's so 80s is the damn soundtrack is fantastic. It is perfectly an 80s type of soundtrack that just, this seems like a bestseller type of soundtrack. Absolutely, positively, yes. And there's just a great amount of character development because you got the character of Alice getting the torch passed to her, get the power of the Dream Master poured into her. She gains the souls that Freddy is taking the lives of, so she begins to gain the strengths and powers and everything of her friends, building her up to a much more stronger character, where at the beginning of the film she's much more of a meek, sort of little introvert type of character. By the end, she is a complete badass. She is, in my opinion, yeah, Nancy will always have a great place in everyone's hearts, but I think Alice is definitely the best heroine of the entire franchise. She is that strong, powerful type of character that just keeps building towards a greater level in this film and the next. Dream Master has great effects in it. The whole scene where the one character turns into an insect and everything still grosses me the living fuck out, and is why I have not watched David Cronenberg's The Fly, because that film just grossed me the living fuck out, creeped me out. That sequence just gets me every single time. The effects are fantastic, the cinematography is fantastic, the direction is spot on. It just doesn't do a whole lot to satisfy a horror film's desire for anything. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't really get you creeping and crawling or anything besides that little scene, for me anyway. But Renny Harlin's never been great at horror, but he's great at making a slick, polished, beautiful type of film that it is easy to see why he ended up getting great offers such as Adventures of Ford Fairlane, but more prominently Die Hard 2 not long after this, because he definitely showed that he can deliver a very entertaining type of package that is extremely successful. I can entirely see why this kept driving more audiences to see it, because even though it isn't a horror film that's going to get you on that kind of type of level, it is immensely entertaining, and I've got a whole new respect for it after I saw it last year. It's a great film in a certain way, but it's not a great horror film. But it really kind of is evident that Freddy is going much more towards the jokey comedy type of stuff, because you got a lot more of those scenes in this thing that Englund did prefer going towards the darker, more serious Freddy, but a lot of the directors kind of liked the much more comedic tone, that much more, that the kind of button, that kind of punch that the comedic performance gave. So you would give both performances and the director would choose which one he preferred later on in editing, and they just kept writing him and pushing him more towards the jokey comedy stuff. And this film is definitely very much evident of that. But for the next film, they did a lot of things. You can watch the Never Sleep Again documentary, got a lot more detail on it, but they invited a lot of different ideas into making the next film, because they weren't quite sure where to go, what they were going to do with it. And he ended up with Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, directed by Stephen Hopkins, who would later do Predator 2, which I like Predator 2 a hell of a lot. Not better than the first, but it's a damn good movie. This film is not very good. I'm just going to say that flat out from the beginning. It's not very good, but it's not the worst. Because the thing was, they saw that Freddy was going into a much more brighter, lighter type of jokey comedy type of way, so they wanted to kind of veer it much more into a darker realm and everything. But the problem is, you got Stephen Hopkins injecting this very gothic type of look to the film, draining out all the color, all the vibrancy, all the fantastical visual stylings and everything, and driving it down to a very dark, dreary, ugly type of aesthetic in the film, while still having Freddy cracking wise and everything, and having jokes every so often, and those two styles just don't fucking mix. And this film is very unbalanced. It feels very front-loaded with exposition, and there's a whole bunch of padding, and then they rush at the end of the film to... It's very sloppy. It's very uneven. It's not a well-balanced film. I'll give it to Stephen Hopkins that he was on extreme pressure on this film. They were delivering this film to theaters less than a year after the last film, and that is never a good idea. When you rush a film, you are going to get an imperfect product, to say the very least. The characters, aside from Alice Johnson, not all that good. They're not very engaging, not very entertaining. They're not very hell of a lot likable. But Lisa Wilcox still does a great performance as Alice. I love that they brought her back, that they keep bringing characters back in this franchise up to a certain point, that you keep having recurring characters, bringing them back, facing Freddy again, win or lose, you never quite know, because some of them have perished, some of them haven't. And in Lisa Wilcox's case, she does a great, solid performance. She never wavers in any way, shape, or form. She does a great job. A lot of the effects are really high quality. There is a lot of imagination with those effects. A couple of the kills are very imaginative, but it is just that ugly ass fucking aesthetic that just doesn't work. It just is an ugly film to look at. It's not very pleasing, where you got something like Dream Wars and Dream Master, which are very colorful, vibrant type of films with a lot of mood and atmosphere to them still, and you just make it this not a pleasing film to look at, in my view. And the climax of the film, which the Dream Master climax was absolutely fantastic, perfect, spectacular. This one tries to introduce some production design that's supposed to look surreal, but it looks like a bunch of stuff that you see in Looney Tunes cartoons. So you can't take it seriously. It's not scary. It's just a bunch of wacky, stupid antics and whatnot. It's just more fucking padding. That it's weird to say padding when it just seems like the film's rushing towards the end of the film. The film is not well put together. It's not. They rushed it too much. If they took another couple of months or whatnot, because they invited a lot of different scripts to come into this thing, a lot of different ideas, and they ended up with this thing which just it didn't pan out well. They didn't have time to develop the screenplay to make it a solid, well-balanced type of story. And you don't want to go into a slasher film and have debates about abortion. No, it doesn't belong to that thing. I will not, even in the written review, I said I'm not going to voice any kind of opinion on the subject, because it's a very heated type of subject. But let's just say you don't go into a Nightmare on Elm Street film to see social commentary about abortion and whatnot. Just like, yeah, this had a lot of missteps that were very much going to prepare you for as much as they possibly could what to expect from Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. I hate the living fuck out of this goddamn movie. This movie pisses me off. This movie puts me into a horribly bad mood. God damn it, when I watched this film to review it last year, I was fucking bent out of shape. I did not like this film at all. It is a despicable fucking movie, in my opinion. This film has nothing, not a damn thing going into it. When they went into creating this movie, production-wise, script-wise, they had no intention of making it anything resembling a horror film. They went into it intentionally saying, Robert Englund says, that Never Sleep Again documentary, they went into it intending to make a Bugs Bunny cartoon. This is the worst film of the entire goddamn franchise, bar none. There's no possible way you could sink below the level of this movie in this franchise, or possibly any other. Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare has a shitty fucking plot. The script is so shoddy. They do not address anything. Like I mentioned shortly before, the whole character continuity of bringing back characters and trying to continuing each character's storyline a little bit, having them pass the torch to someone new and whatnot. None of that's here. Alice Johnson, she's never spoken of again. She's never seen again. This film takes place 10 years from now, which this film was released in 91, and Springwood has become this desolate wasteland. There's no kids. The adults are all kind of weird, kind of senile people. There's weird shit going on there. And my question on all this film, that if Freddy's laid waste to this whole town and he's become more powerful than he ever has, and he can transcend throughout the entire world through one conduit, what the fuck happened to Alice? That's my question with this film. What happened with Alice? That the most powerful enemy that he has faced, the most powerful adversary he has, who's defeated him twice, nowhere to be found. Either A, they fought and she died, which is a story I'd love to see if Freddy fought her and defeated her and went on to victory. Or two, she walked away and abandoned everything. I'd like to know why. I'd like to see that story. Either one of those stories is a better story than what you have in this movie. What the fuck? If you got this great fan favorite, fantastic character who's beaten Freddy twice, And you get to this point in the franchise where it's saying, Freddy's kind of won. He's beaten this whole town. He's more powerful than ever before. Where the hell is his most powerful adversary now? Where is she? Did she walk away and let everyone just perish? Or did Freddy defeat her? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Moving on from that, this film has shoddy direction. Rachel Talalay does a terrible job directing this film, in my opinion. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. The editing in this thing is bad. That there's no segues. Feels like scenes abruptly end and you hard cut to another scene. Just there's no segue. There's no flow in this film whatsoever. I hate the story of this film that you bring up after all this time. Like I said, you have this great character of Alice that you could have brought in and have a great big final ultimate confrontation. Instead, you bring up a brand new character that is supposedly Freddy's daughter from decades ago that we've never seen about, and then the film doesn't even do anything with her for the first hour of the movie, and then they rush through a storyline with her in the last half hour. Just, it's shoddily done all the way through. Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare is not good on any level, in my opinion. I mean, yes, there are some of the supporting cast is solid. Some of the kids in the film do a really good job, but Lisa Zane and Sean Greenblatt are just hollow actors in this film. They have no expression, they have no emotion projected out of themselves. They have the exact same blank as hell expression on their faces through every single scenario in this film, whether it's fear, whether it's excitement, whatever it is, it's the exact same flat expression. They have nothing to offer as main protagonists in this film whatsoever. And for goddamn, you got Yaphet Kotto in this film, who is absolutely incredible in everything I see him in, from Alien and Homicide, Life on the Street, everything. He does a fantastic performance, but he has almost so extremely little to work with, so few scenes, that I'd rather have this film be about Yaphet Kotto, because he has every fucking answer in the book about what the hell's going on, how to defeat Freddy. Make the film about Yaphet Kotto, because he's an immensely better actor than these people. Make Yaphet Kotto versus Freddy Krueger. I will pay money to see that, because that is a fantastic thing. But yeah, and you get to the climax of this film with this stupid-ass fucking 3D gimmick. It's just horrible. This film is just awful, horrible. Left, right, and center, upside and down, inside and out. There's nothing I can praise as a whole in this film. There's just nothing good. And the fucking climax, how they fucking kill Freddy in this film, is goddamn insulting. You can see this film just bends me all out of fucking shape. After all the fantastical, metaphysical type of ways they've had to defeat Freddy, they kill Freddy with a pipe bomb. They bring him into our real world and kill him with a pipe bomb. You couldn't ask for a much more shitty fucking ending to one of the most iconic slasher horror characters of all time than to blow him up with a pipe bomb. How much more anticlimactic can you get? This is a shit fucking movie. This movie pisses me off. I cannot stand this movie. The movie just... I'm not going to go on and on about it, because I think I'm well spoken about it at this point. But it was just the fact that New Line felt, okay, the franchise is running out of steam. There's not a lot of creativity that we have left to put into it. We're going to put a nail in the coffin, and goddamn, they put a fucking ugly-ass, terrible, insulting-ass nail into this coffin, because... even the makeup effects on Freddy just look awful. They look like fucking rubber. They do not look realistic in the least. They look terrible. There's just nothing good in this film. There's so much campy, jokey crap that is not fucking funny. It's just terrible. Oh, God. Thank goodness New Line Cinema, a couple years later, decided to call up Wes Craven and say, did we do anything with this franchise that insulted you, that left a bad impression on you? Is there anything that we can do to correct this for you? And in 1994, we got Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which, my God, is a breath of fresh air after that god-awful fucking movie that I just talked about. New Nightmare is a different kind of beast. And it wasn't very successful because I think it was ahead of its time. The whole concept was very much ahead of its time. Even by the end of the 90s, I think it was ahead of its time. It was released 10 years later. That kind of concept would have flowed perfectly with something like, we already had something like The Matrix out and everything, with very reality bending type of things, like, is this reality, what's reality? In New Nightmare, you got, everything is set more or less in the real world of our world, not in the film franchise, but outside. Heather Langenkamp is essentially Heather Langenkamp. John Saxon is John Saxon. Wes Craven appears as Wes Craven. Because the whole story is basically that there's an ancient demon that sort of weaves its way in and out of popular stories throughout time, that it embodies them, kind of manifests within them, and to keep itself alive. It's very, very metaphysical type of stuff. But it works. It works very well because, for one thing, Wes Craven definitely shows a great maturity in his filmmaking style in this film, that after he got a lot of things like Shocker out of the way, that was very cheesy and corny, but still slightly entertaining. After he got that kind of stuff out of his way, he just really matured a hell of a lot with this film. Just, it shows completely. The cinematography, every sensibility he shows as a filmmaker, shows immense maturity that he grew into at this point. But you got this great, interesting kind of story that might not click for everyone, but it is so well executed in a certain way that it's not going. The thing you have to prep yourself mainly, I feel, for this film is that it's not really making itself out to be a slasher film primarily. It is much more psychological in a certain way, that a lot of stuff is intentionally repeated from the first film. That this demon embodying the persona of Freddy is trying to merge realities, trying to draw Heather into his reality so that he can break free and all this kind of stuff. That certain things are being recreated, that he is recreating scenarios from the first film that she keeps falling into. It's very subtle. It very much weaves its way in very easily. It's not very abrupt. It's not clashing things. It's very, very smart in that type of way, that it is interjecting these little things where this demon is coming in and he's just going in a little at a time, that he's not bursting on the scene right away, that he's taking a little time to crawl his way into this reality. My only thing about the film is that, yeah, it doesn't quite go satisfying a slasher film fan's desires. That it is going much more psychological. There's not a lot of kills. There's not hell of a lot of gore. The ending is not a big, fantastic affair. It's a little bit more physical than metaphysical, which I think is a failing in the concept of the whole thing. There's not a lot of creative way that they did smash at this demon at the end of the film. But the film is exquisitely well shot. Like I said, the great maturity of his filmmaking sensibilities is well on display here. I love how the film looks. It looks very naturalistic. It has a lot of great moody quality to it, but it feels very grounded in our type of reality. It's not going overly fantastical, but keeping it a very mature, enticing, inviting type of looking film. And the score of the film is solid as all hell. It doesn't go for, because it's now like the mid-90s, it's not the 80s where there's a lot of synthesis. I have a hell of a lot of trouble saying synthesizer. There's not a lot of that synth type of score and everything being injected into the film. It's much more traditional type of horror film type of stuff, but it's very well subtly executed. It's not going for big, loud crash or anything. It's doing the suspense angle, which is carried on from Craven's first film. That he's going right for the suspense of everything, and that's what you need to do. That's exactly the Wes Craven I'm looking for. Someone who can tweak that suspense and tension the right ways. New Nightmare is a breath of fresh air. It is right up there with Dream Wars and the first film as the best stuff this franchise has to offer in terms of imagination and freshness and creativity. That he doesn't go ahead and do the same old thing. He's trying to do something new and inventive and fairly radical at the time. Yeah, no one, like I said, this was a very not well seen type of concept to have this weird type of. Even when you see the trailers, I don't think they even knew how to market the film right. It seemed much more like they were marketing a documentary in a certain way. Just regardless of that, New Nightmare is a solid movie. I would definitely recommend it. Don't go into it thinking you're going to get tons of gore and slasher type of violence and everything. Go into it thinking you're going to get a psychological, supernatural suspense type of movie, and I think you'll have a much more better time with it. But slightly, I have to go ahead and in 2003, because after long time in development hell, Freddy vs. Jason finally arrived. And I did mention this, I did talk about it a good deal in the Friday the 13th movie retrospective I did several months ago. Simply put, Freddy vs. Jason was a film I was hyped up beyond belief for at the time. I could not sleep the night before I saw it. I saw it 3 times opening weekend. I had a whole bunch of stuff that was just bursting with excitement. I loved the film at the time, but you look back on the film and you see all the things that are just horrible, terrible, such missed opportunities. After 10 years of development hell, I can't believe this is the best screenplay that they could have put together for this film. I don't think that the director they chose, Ronny, was a good choice. He just turned it into a big comic book monster movie that just didn't have anything to do with the roots of these two franchises whatsoever. bad choices all around. The acting in this film, in a lot of cases, is the worst acting by far in both franchises, bar none. No contest whatsoever. Just horrible stiff, flat type of crap. Horrible acting in so many cases. The only people who have good acting are the ones who have exposition to dump on you. And once their exposition quotient is filled up in the film, they are gone, they're dispatched, they're killed, slashed off, so we get to spend more time with the people who have terrible acting abilities in this film. As a Nightmare on Elm Street film, I think it does a good job. That this film really does feel like a Nightmare on Elm Street film guest starring Jason Voorhees. It has a lot of the perfect Nightmare on Elm Street type of qualities to it. They do still have wisecracking, jokey Freddy, but I like that sort of salacious type of slur that they added into his voice to make him seem a lot more sleazy. And I like that quality to it. And there's a lot of imagination in the film in terms of Freddy. There's a lot of good visual stylings and everything. But it really is, when you get down, keep injecting all that goddamn comedy, and it's not good comedy. It's wacky, stupid crap that I really should villainize Freddy Krueger, because he was a child killer. Regardless of anything else he might have been, he was at least a child killer, and you should villainize the fuck out of this guy. Vilify him to the nth degree and stop making him a jokey, cartoony character. Make him a serious fucking villain, because that's when he works the absolute best, and this film failed to do that and a hell of a lot of things on top of it. And even though Freddy vs. Jason was immensely successful, it was the most successful box office take of either franchise. They sat on things. They couldn't get anything going with the Freddy vs. Jason sequels, guest starring Ash from the Evil Dead franchise. So things the franchise sat around, and they went ahead and gave it the remake treatment from Platinum Dunes in 2010. And no, this film shows no ambition, shows no passion, shows no effort. Problem with Platinum Dunes, because it's done by Michael Bay, who came from the exact same background, because they keep hiring music video directors. Now, bear in mind, you might get, on a rare occasion, a David Fincher or Russell Mulcahy from that type of background, who will go on to do some spectacular work, some groundbreaking type of work. Most of the times you get people like Jonathan Liebsman and fucking Samuel Bayer here, or Marcus Nispel, who can make extremely visually enticing products, but they have no experience making storytelling, to tell a story with actors, to work with actors, bring out dimensional, dynamic performances from them, work with work with tone, work with suspense, work with tension, work with things that make it a solid type of horror movie. That there is so many damn jump scares in this film that when I saw it in the theater, all I was on edge about was just another damn jump scare coming out of nowhere. There was no suspense, there was no subtlety in this film. It might have some good ideas, but they do not execute them well. They don't follow through on the right ways, because the sort of twist they're trying to throw in this film is that maybe Freddy Krueger was wrongfully accused, that he didn't do what he was accused of and what he was burned to death for doing. But they handle it in such a damn stupid ass fucking way that there's no way you can buy into the possibility, because throughout the entire goddamn movie, Freddy Krueger is a sadistic, ruthless, mirthless motherfucker. There's no sympathy to have with the character, because he is, without question, without hesitation, without anything, he is murdering people mercilessly throughout the whole film, slashing and torturing and tormenting people. You can't buy into it because he doesn't act like someone who is wrongfully accused. He was not someone you would be sympathetic towards. It doesn't feel like it's a revenge tale where Freddy Krueger is the one who's done wrong. It's not executed well, because at the end of the film, when you go through all this shit, it was just a red herring. It was just a worthless waste of time, because, yeah, he's not wrongfully accused. He did everything he was accused of, and he was rightfully burned to death and everything. So it was just a waste of fucking storyline that it doesn't go anywhere. It ends at a dead end. It doesn't amount to anything. It doesn't expand on anything. It doesn't go anywhere. But Jackie Earle Haley is a great actor. I like a lot what he does with the character of Freddy Krueger. He does a lot of good, unique, original mannerisms in the whole film. He tries to make it his own as much as he can. But even because with Robert Englund, when they had the makeup on, I saw Freddy. I didn't see Robert Englund. I saw Freddy Krueger there. Jackie Earle Haley has a much more distinct type of structure to his face that when you see Freddy Krueger in this remake, that it looks like Jackie Earle Haley. The makeup effect is much different from the one you had before. It's much more of a melted skin, not the pizza face type of thing. There's a lot of missteps that just don't feel like everything's really kind of followed through on as much as it could. There's not enough passion to be ambitious with this film, and a lot of the actors in the film they're not giving a lot of effort. Because they go for a certain thing with the main characters being sleep deprived, that yes, they would be drained of energy. They would not have a lot of oomph or anything. They'd look very drained, very haggard. But in none of the other Elm Street movies, I say, well, these persons have been up for 3 days. They should be dead tired and everything. I think this is not realistic. I never had a fucking problem with that. As long as the performance was solid and did its job, I had no fucking problem with it. I never thought for 1 second that they needed to be this drained out, low energy type of thing, because that does not work on screen. That makes for a very uninteresting, drab, hollow type of performance. It doesn't fucking work. It just doesn't work. And you even got someone like Clancy Brown here who, take Kurgan out of it. Take Kurgan from the Highlander out of it. Go watch Catherine Bigelow's Blue Steel, and you'll see him do a fantastic, charismatic performance that just owns the damn screen. It's him as a cop. That's all it is. It's a grounded type of role, and he does a fantastic, charismatic type of energetic job. And this film, he just doesn't have a good director to motivate him to get the right performance out of him. He doesn't have a director who knows how to work with actors and draw a dynamic, exceptional performance out of someone. Even Connie Britton is a great actress. Again, fucking forgettable. There's just nothing memorable about this movie. And every little thing that this remake tries to redo from the first film just lacks imagination, lacks originality. This is ultimately a film that just it's a remake for remake's sake. It's not doing anything that it tries to do that wasn't done in the first film is not followed up on. It just evaporates. It falls apart. And the performances are not memorable. They're not charismatic. The story just is not cohesive, not strong. It just falls apart. I don't like the film. Even my friend Steve Fraser, who Nightmare on Elm Street is his favorite horror film of all time, he hated this film probably even more than I did at the time, because we were talking about this thing on opening weekend after we both saw it, just like, this film just deserves as much of a lambasting as possible, because it just does not do a good service to the franchise at all. I mean, I'd rather watch it before I watch Freddy's Dead. I'd probably, aesthetically, and talking aesthetics, I'd watch it more than I would Dream Child, but just, other than aesthetics, it just doesn't have anything going for it that makes it an enticing watch. There's nothing, it's all blunt objects, there's nothing that's subtle, there's no artistic craftsmanship in this thing. It's just a piece of crap in my view, that it just doesn't live up. It's just evocative of all Platinum Dunes work, that it's very hollow, marketing push type of stuff. It's just a product that they're pushing out there, that it's very hollow. It doesn't have anything to offer. But who knows what the future will hold for Freddy Krueger. Robert Englund is still kicking around. I think he could still come back and do Krueger and do him great if you get the right people involved. I would love to see him come back and do one more hurrah, and just do the right final conclusion for Freddy Krueger. Wipe all the other crap away and just do the right ending for him. Don't wipe anything out of continuity, but just say, we're doing it right this time. We're bringing back Robert, and we're going to do it the right way, because obviously the franchise isn't going anywhere else, because that remake was not well received, and it's been many years, and they're not doing jack shit with it. So, what is your favorite film from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise? Post some comments below. Talk about your favorite characters, which kills that you think were the best, the most imaginative, most creative type of ways they dispatch with someone, or the best way they dispatched with Freddy. I think that was Dream Master that did the absolute best job of concluding that. Just post some comments below. Set up some Freddy Krueger discussions. I wish I had some props to offer you or whatnot in this thing, but I was on the bug. I wanted to get it done. I was very motivated to talk a little Freddy Krueger stuff after listening to some of the great soundtrack songs. That's another thing you can discuss. What's your favorite song from Elm Street soundtracks? Post some comments below. Dokken, you'll have Tuesday Night song from Dream Master, Dramarama, whoever it is. Post some stuff below. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit some like buttons, spread some links around, and hopefully I'll be back in due time with something else equally entertaining. Take care. Bye-bye.